everyone. Welcome to Moments with Monika, a podcast where I engage in reflections on life, love, and learning. My background in early childhood studies is a lens that often shapes my views and reflections. I tend to understand the world as highly impacted by children, families, and individuals, as well as the policies, beliefs, and communities in which they live, love, work, and play. I see it as a reciprocal relationship. Join me in challenging and expanding my thinking through the help of others to live a more reflective life. You can find more of my work and what inspires me at monikaobermeyer.com. Let's get started, shall we? Everyone. Today we'll be talking about the difference between for-profit and not-for-profit childcare. I think this is a pretty important topic right now because of changes that are going on in the government in Ontario. So we used to have something called a for-profit maximum threshold policy, which was put into place to protect not-for-profit childcares by decreasing the funding being sent to for-profit childcares. Just recently, this was overturned by Doug Ford, and now this will allow for-profits to kind of come back in and grow, particularly the really big for-profit companies that have multiple agencies. And I know this was done in part because we have a problem with childcare spaces. We have long waiting lists, especially in more remote areas, and also for certain age groups, particularly infants. So families are asking for more spaces to open up, and this is one way that the government is trying to tackle that issue. Except what families don't know is that all the research points towards the fact that for-profit centers just don't have the same quality as not-for-profit. So parents are asking for more spaces, but they're not necessarily asking for less quality. They just don't know that fact. This is also a problem because early childhood education should be seen as education. It's not separate from the school system. It's part of the lifelong continuum of learning. And so early childhood education shouldn't really be for profit in the first place. Learning shouldn't be for profit. It should be for everyone equally. Everyone should have that opportunity to have learning and support and development in their first 5 years when it's so critical. But even if you put that aside, there's so much research, and I guess I can put some links to it in the description, but that over the past, 1994 was the last one I can think of that was really big. So that was, oh God, my math. I think that was like 20 years ago, 24 years ago. Does that make sense? 10, yeah, something like that. We already knew that this quality was really different in not-for-profit and for-profit. And a really big piece of that in the findings is the fact that the quality of the work environment for the actual employees is worse. So that leads to lower job satisfaction, lower wages, and higher turnover. And all of those things affect the quality of the program for the children. So today, we're joined by a friend of mine from college, actually. We studied EC together. I'd like to introduce Angela. She's an EC. Registered EC in Ontario. She's also a yoga teacher, and she also does a ton of other things. So she's a Jill of all trades. She has lots of experience in the for-profit early childhood centers, and perhaps she can shed some light on where these centers are failing. So I'm going to turn you on. Hello, Angela.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Monika. Thank you very much for having me today.
No problem. Thanks for coming. So you've worked in a lot of centers, primarily for profit, but you have worked in not-for-profit as well?
That is correct. So a combination of nonprofit and profit organizations together with working and my placement experience from when we were in school.
And then, so as an employee, and I guess as a student too, how did you find the work environment in for-profit centers compared to not-for-profit?
Well, throughout my experiences, I saw a variety of quality and not so much quality care and work environments. There was one daycare that I was like amazed by, that it was like really great, and it was a for-profit, and then from there nothing else was able to match that par. Everything else was a disappointment in the profit sector.
And that seems to be pretty consistent. And so, like, if you could choose now, where would you choose to work, like between for-profit and not-for-profit?
Well, it would be, if I was to be doing a profit organization, I think I would go into it on my own, and I would open up something for myself, because it would reflect my values and my standards in what I hope to see in childcare, which is the quality being there. If I was to go back into the field and actually be working for somebody, it would be in a nonprofit organization. Because nonprofit organizations, they have a board that they have to answer to. I'm just trying not to name any of the companies that I've worked for or anything like that, and just to keep it.
Of course, and I don't think that anyone opens up a for-profit center with the intention of providing bad quality. So it's not important which centers are bad.
Right.
I think when people think, oh, I want to open a childcare center, they're not thinking, wow, this is big business, I'm going to make millions of dollars. Something has driven them there because they want to provide some kind of quality. The problem is when you're trying to put profit in, you have to cut somewhere. So how do you cut costs without cutting quality? And I think that's a fine balance. And I know there are centers that are for profit that are doing well.
Well, from my experience, when I was working at a for-profit daycare, I saw that they cut costs on our wages. And I noticed that was lacking in quality. I had the passion and the drive to make sure that the kids were safe and everything like that. But I witnessed one ECE assistant. She wasn't yet an ECE, but she literally took a face wipe and wiped 10 other kids with the same wipe.
Oh my God, gross.
And I'm like, honey, what are you doing? Like, you need to get a new face wipe. I'm like, that's not great. And there was a daycare in Vaughan, actually, that got shut down because of a combination of reasons. It was the face cloths, force feeding the kids, and a bunch of stuff. Like, it got shut down. And this was about 2 years ago, another daycare. I didn't work for this daycare, but I heard from the grapevine.
And I think that also has to do with the amount of training they provide. Because when I worked for not-for-profit, they were really good at sending us out to our training and paying for it, or bringing in training.
Right.
And then, like, once a year we did a big one agency did a huge conference for all of its people that worked for the agency, and it was fantastic, and they brought in the best people. So even those, either that had been in the field for a long time or were assistants and didn't have the training, there was always some opportunities to develop more training.
Of course.
But if you're cutting the cost of the staff and you're cutting the cost of training, you're not gonna get as good people.
No, unfortunately, I found myself having high standards and hoping that I had high hopes taking this job, because I got it through a friend of a friend that knew that this daycare was hiring, and I was like, okay, I'm like, perfect. And I was like, okay, I'm taking a bit of a pay degrade, a pay cut. And when I saw so many things happening, and I saw behavioral issues with the children occurring, and it was occurring in my classroom. And then I was handling it the best that I could, and then the owner would say, oh, well, that's just normal, that's the way that her should I even say this?
It's fine.
Okay. That her sibling was the exact same way, and that it's the room or something like that. And I said to her, I'm like, no. I'm like, there's something going on at home. I'm like, this is not a reflection of the daycare, because she comes home after spending the week. Sorry, she comes back to the daycare and she's upset.
Yeah.
And there's
more going on.
There's more going on. And with me, my passion is the emotional, like the social emotional aspect of children. I don't want to see a child saying, I hate my life at 7 years old.
Yeah, it's too young.
It's way too young.
Yeah.
At 7 years old, they should be playing in the garden, or playing like outside in the schoolyard and the daycare yard, and getting mud underneath their fingers and picking up worms and having their dolls underneath their arm and like going down the slide and and then like going and looking for caterpillars and things like that. Like
if they hate their life, it should be because they weren't allowed to play longer. It shouldn't be because their life sucks. It's like, I hate my life. You're making me come in and wash my hands.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to keep playing.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I've seen that in the profit sector, and I've seen it in the nonprofit sector. But the benefit of the nonprofit sector was that the parents were so grateful when I called for support, and I called Children's Aid, and they were like, thank you so much. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. My son has been like having emotional, psychological issues for a while now. The school's been trying to get him help. And because you called, and because you were lucky enough to hear his comment, and you didn't even hesitate to call, you got him help.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I'm like, that shouldn't even be something that people shouldn't hesitate. If there's something going on, there should be a connection to the child care providers, the school, and a school psychologist, where it's all combined and we all communicate throughout.
Yeah. And any agency, like for the younger years, there isn't the school connection, but then there's mental health agencies for younger children that you can be connected, or the resource teachers that come in. And I think, one area where the for-profit maybe lacks that is the fact that they don't build those connections in the same way, because they don't see themselves as a community agency. So not-for-profit sees itself, we're not here for profit, we're here for children.
Yes.
And so they feel this need to build those connections with early intervention and different programs, whereas for-profits, it's like we're providing a service for pay.
Yeah.
And you bring your children here, so there's not that much as much connection. No, I want to say all of that with the caveat that there's great for-profit agencies.
Yes.
The problem is there's few of them. The ratio of good to bad is not as high.
Well, from what I've experienced, right? Like, and it's not like I have only been around for so many years that I haven't seen a lot. Excuse me. But what I've seen is that there's that lack of community when you're in a for-profit, in some of the for-profits that I've been to. Yeah. And because it's that lack of community, that's where there's a disconnect. One for-profit, I must say, they actually did connect like a dentist for the kids. So they actually had like a dentist day and for like them to go get their teeth cleaned and stuff like that. And that was a for-profit organization. But then another for-profit organization, there wasn't really that much of an interest in the child as a whole. Yeah. It was more like, okay, thank you very much for paying me my money and for me taking care of your kid, but I'm not going to tell you how your child's doing. It's just going to be like, it is the way it is. And
it's more of a service so parents can go to work or do their thing, as opposed to how are we providing education for the children.
Yeah.
And I know, like, from your passion, it has a lot to do with mental health, both adult and children. And how do you see that being supported in both not-for-profit and for-profit?
With profit organizations that I've seen recently, unfortunately, there's a lack of knowledge in some of the staff that's there. They don't value the importance of communicating with the younger kids, like the infants and toddlers, but communicating in a sense and watching their words. So if a child's eating sloppy and their food's all over the place, you don't say to the kid, "Oh my God, you're such a mess." You say to the kid, "Good job, look at you. You're like trying so hard to like get the spoon into your mouth, and don't worry, it's
clean it up.
We'll clean it up after."
Yeah.
But it's more about the point of us being able to like let them pick up the food. I mean, pick up the spoon, explore, and everything like that, right? Whereas some will be like, "Oh my God, it's such a mess," and I'm there and my heart's like breaking.
Yeah.
My heart's like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, they're not even seeing the success in the moment.
Yeah, and my heart's like absolutely breaking, and I am like, "Breathe, Angela, breathe. Just breathe. Don't say anything. Just like, breathe." And maybe just kindly explain it later and say, "Do you realize the damage that you're doing to this child by saying, 'Oh my God, you've made such a mess'?"
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you've made a mess. There's Cheerios on the floor. No problem. There's spaghetti on your bib. No problem.
But you were so successful today. You got food in your mouth. Like, what confidence building that could be, as opposed to shaming almost.
Exactly. Like that's the part that just gives me so much anxiety, is watching like these assistants, and they're not really ECEs, they're the assistants.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are doing the most damage.
And the thing is, I worked in a great agency where it was one of my first ones where I had my own room with an assistant, and it was not for profit, but I don't know if it was about the agency, which was a great agency, but also I had a great assistant. And I actually learned so much from her. And assistants, even though they're not trained, they can be great if they're supported well. Like, she was so fantastic. First of all, she had years of experience.
Yes.
But also, she worked for an agency that sent her regularly, at least 3 times a year, for training, and she had to do that training as part of her job. It was a requirement. Like, you got to the end of the year and they were like, "You didn't do training, you better get out there and do a week of training."
It's a must.
Yeah,
completely. Like, if you're going to be putting people that are like off the streets, like, and don't have the educational background of being an ECE, you need to educate them.
Yeah, it's not the same as being a big brother or sister or babysitting your neighbor's kid. You're watching a child for the whole day.
It's 8 hours, 9 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day. And those kids, they go through so many emotional shifts throughout the day. They have their ups, they have their downs, they have their, for starters, if they're a brand new child into the daycare center, you're going to have them crying all day.
Yeah.
And for
such
somebody,
a big adjustment.
Yeah, for somebody who's new, they're not going to know how to like deal with that. Yeah. They're going to just be like, "Oh my God, is this kid ever going to stop?"
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, this is normal. Like, we know, you and I know from school, this is normal, because his mom or dad or like parent or grandparent, anybody, family members, that's close to them, is dropping them off, and they're away from them for the first time.
Yeah.
And this is usually
it's scary.
Yeah. Like,
until they learn that the mom or parent or caregiver is coming back, it could feel like they're alone, like,
exactly.
How long is this going to go on?
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. And I think you're right that not having that background, like that, we're talking about attachment here.
Yes.
That is like the core to who we become.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
if you don't have basic training in that, then, and you don't know that you need to support this moment, like, this is critical to this child and who they become and how they live future relationships with everybody, not just their mom and dad or their grandmother or their brother and sister. This is, how will they date in the future? How will they trust friends in the future? Like, that is the foundation for all of that. What is their marriage going to look like? This crying is important.
Oh my God.
And if they don't have basic training in attachment, then they're not supporting those moments effectively.
No, and like the whole the attachment thing, like, when I find the best way to like help the child transition into like a daycare is introducing them for an hour a day. Yeah. And if the family's lucky enough to do that, do an hour a day, then do 2. then do
Exactly.
3, then do 4. Gradually progress the time so that the child understands, okay, my mom and dad or guardian is going to be there.
Exactly, yeah.
And
they come back.
They come back.
They say goodbye, they drop me off, but they always come back. It's always a nice reunion.
Exactly.
The problem is a lot of people don't like that. You know, I worked in centers where people don't like the parents in their room. They feel very uneasy, like, oh, mom's watching everything I'm doing or dad's watching. But the reality is that they should know what we're doing. Like, we're watching their most precious possession.
Of course.
And people get really nervous.
I think it's more about their own insecurities of whether they're doing their job right is why they get nervous. But at the same time, when we were in school, our professor said a good child care will allow the parents in.
At any time.
At any time.
Yeah.
So you'll see parents come in and just be like, hey, how's it going? And bring donuts or like bring coffee or something like that.
I have an extended lunch. Here I am.
Yeah, it's like I want to see my child. I want to see how they're doing. Why not have them in there?
You know, like, I always took the perspective like I use them as spare hands.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, since you're here, help hand out the snack.
Oh my gosh.
Like I always put them to work, and I think, you know, partially that's because I'm like, well, we're busy.
Yeah.
But also, it was like, the best way for them to feel comfortable in the space was to also have a job. I think parents are used to taking care of things and providing for their child. So when they come in the space, I was always like, here, feel useful.
Yeah.
You want to clean some toys?
Well, it's inclusion, right? And that's what childcare is all about, is inclusion. So it's having the family being included in the environment that their child's in for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of the day.
Yeah.
So,
and I think as a for-profit center, that's hard because you're not looking at it like from the same perspective. You're a business providing a service, and if parents don't like something, technically they can complain. Whereas, and just go to another business. And there's lots of for-profits, so they switch businesses. But from a nonprofit's perspective, I never looked at it as you would go anywhere or we were providing a service. I always kind of looked at it as like, this was my obligation, and this happened to be the best childcare in your area that had space and accepted you. So we need to work together to make it the best we can.
Well, absolutely.
Parents don't really have a lot of choice.
No.
Like the waiting lists kind of dictate the area that they live. It's, people say, oh, not for profit versus for profit. For profit's a business, but it's like, if that for profit's not close to your home, it doesn't matter how much you like it, you're not going to go.
Yeah, that's
really,
true.
they do a lot by proximity, by either they choose near their work or they choose near their home.
It's true, and then sometimes they even have wait lists that are closer to their work too.
And whichever open up first, that's where their kid goes.
And it's the training, it's the knowledge, it's the know-how. We were very fortunate to go to school when we did. I feel that our professors that we had were top notch.
Yeah.
Like they were just wonderful, and I'm so grateful that we had that experience.
Yeah, we went to a great school.
We did.
With an amazing faculty, that's for sure. People who were truly passionate about the field and about children. And
it's just, how can we bring those high standards and make a difference?
And I'm sure that the other colleges in our area are probably doing the same. We just don't have the experience.
Yep, absolutely.
But there's definitely a new wave of early childhood educators that came out of those schools in the last 5-10 years.
Yes.
Maybe even, I wouldn't even go as far as 10, when really the field took a shift, where it really became more about the early learning.
Yes.
And the whole child and the child's really social, emotional piece, mental health, became much more of a focus than, you know, the routines, the lunches, the naps, the mommy goes to work, the ABCs and the counting. Like all that kind of still happens, but that's not priority at all because research has changed in the last 10 years. And it's really shown us like how important this is. And then for the centers not to keep up with that, you need people at the top that are really required. And I think there is one piece about for-profit and not-for-profit that does help that, and that's no matter how your agencies run or your organizations run, there has to be an EC at the top.
Of course.
So at least that legislation is in place, that even if you're a supervisor and you're not working directly with the children, you still have to be an EC.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yep.
But how much say does a supervisor have in an organization with 17 locations?
Yeah.
And they're looking at the bottom line budget at the end of the month.
Yeah.
As opposed to a not-for-profit where all you're trying to do is break even and you're often in the red. So, they take their supervisors more seriously because they need those supervisors' creativity and ingenuity to keep them afloat.
Of course.
And to matter. Whereas in for-profits, like, well, we'll just buy less paper next month. Or we'll tell you to use less baby wipes. Only 3 baby wipes a child,
or less gloves.
Yeah. Limit your glove supply, please.
Yeah, it's like, no, thanks.
You guys are going through hand washing soap really quick. What's happening? It's like, my kids are getting dirty and there's germs we need to wash.
Yeah, it's like we need to keep these kids like clean. Like, yes, germs are healthy for kids, but to like a certain extent.
But not to make parents take weeks off work because their kid got some sort of communicable disease.
Exactly, because you're not sanitizing the toys properly or you're not washing their hands properly or things like that. I think like what we also have to keep in mind is that there's been a huge shift in the ECE field too.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of good quality ECEs have left the childcare, like the for-profit and non-for-profit for the school board.
Yeah.
And some of them have like left and then returned. Me being one of them.
The politics.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I worked in the school board for 2 years and had a bad experience, and I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah. So, and some love it. There
are.
And really what the school board left it up to the kindergarten teachers to make it great or horrible.
Yes.
And some kindergarten teachers have really embraced ECs in the classroom and have made it a wonderful experience.
Yes.
And some have really been, I don't really know the word, but almost intimidated by the ECs or uncomfortable or threatened.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
it made it very horrible for ECs. But nonetheless, the pay is higher.
Yes.
It's unionized in many school boards. The job is more secure. It's more respected in society that you work for a school than a daycare.
Yeah,
daycare
unfortunately.
The daycare babysitter. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the good ones have gone to the school boards, which also leads to more problems. Then, the ECs who are supposed to be helping the assistants to gain knowledge and to become better are also gone.
Yes, it's true, because I remember like being in our lectures in school and our professors were telling us about the shift that was coming. And they were like, be ready, there's going to be a major shift. And they also advised us, they're like, if you do like stay in this field and you don't go through like further education to become a school teacher, stay with the like non-for-profit organizations, or stay in the daycare aspect, because the children need good quality daycare.
And the thing is, they're not going to be successful in school if they weren't successful in childcare. So we're setting them up for failure by giving I don't want to say our worst, but are not as great ECEs to the early years, and then leaving them till kindergarten. Well, the people who studied those years. Yeah.
And the thing is that like if you don't have good quality ECEs in there, you can develop psychological complexes with these kids, and very young.
Yeah, and just entire self-images are wrapped around in those years. Those are the years where either you say you're a bad boy or you did a bad thing.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a totally different image of how a child views themselves.
Yeah.
And the people who are trained and conscious and who go through that in their mind every day, when we do accidentally say you are a bad boy, we come home and agonize about it because we know
we
it's
can't
wrong,
sleep.
and so then we know to do better next time. It's not like we're perfect. We do make mistakes. We've made many mistakes. But the difference is we know they're mistakes. So when we come home, we're not done work. We're carrying that with us. We're reflecting. We're trying to get better. And much of our education is about that. We spent so much time on reflection.
Absolutely.
How to look at where we've made mistakes, how to improve them, and how to move forward. Not to beat ourselves up over them, but just to see, I could have done better today. Tomorrow I will not do that. And if you're not trained in that skill, that is a practice skill.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if they've really looked at staff training. It wasn't something that immediately came out to me. But I wonder if in for-profit there's any statistics that they don't get as much professional development, or if it's more on their own time.
I think it's on their own time, and I think it's a matter of being in their own hands. I think as a for-profit employee, it's up to you to further your education.
Yeah, so if you take the day off work, you're probably not paid as a training day.
No, you're not.
Whereas in not-for-profit, generally, if you take the day off to be trained, you still get paid for the day of work.
Well, I can't speak for I hate to go back on my word here.
I can't speak for all not-for-profit either. And the ones I've worked for. Yeah.
So I've never, because I've yet to experience that, and so I don't know if they would, but I would hope that would be something it'd be collaborating amongst all staff and saying, okay, hey, we're going to do a workshop to further improve our knowledge in how to implement the early learning program into the daycare kind of thing, which we were lucky enough that we learned that hands-on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think too, there is a gap in our field in general because a lot of ECs working in childcare, both for and not for profit, aren't on permanent contracts. So being a part-time or being split shift or being, a temporary, that means you wouldn't get paid for training regardless. So there's a lot of that in our field, which is ridiculous because we have a shortage of staff, but that's how agencies. I think there's more in for-profit, non-permanent positions because that's another way to cut costs.
Oh, of course.
Temporaries don't need benefits. Temporaries don't need vacation time. Temporaries don't need paid training or dental or any of that. Permanents do. So that's another way that places cut cost. But I know you've had a lot of just little things you've seen in childcares that were cost cutting measures.
Yes.
That were just individually seem so tiny, but taken as a whole, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So can you kind of share some examples of places where they don't call anyone out, but just little things you've seen where it's they're really cheap here.
Okay, so I've seen bibs not being washed on a daily basis, and the kids are just using them for 5 days throughout the week.
Eating bibs?
Yeah, eating bibs, food bibs. So
all meals, snacks,
yep,
same
all
bibs.
Okay. Same bibs.
Just checking.
Of course. No. The same bib used throughout the whole week.
And in all the rooms in the center?
No, not in all the rooms. In one room. Sorry, I apologize. So each child had their own individual bib that they brought in. Okay. But after each meal, they were using the same, so let's say breakfast, they were using the same bib if they needed to wear the bib. And then lunch, it was the exact same bib for, let's say, Monday. And then snack, the exact same bib. And then come Tuesday, the exact same bib for all 3 meals. Wednesday, the exact same, the exact same bib through the whole week, for all 3 meals during every single day.
Was this cost cutting, so that less washing, or was this just lack of knowledge of hygiene?
I think this would definitely be cost cutting. While I was there, I was I think it was I just said cost cutting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's cost cutting for sure because they wanted to probably cut down on their water consumption and everything like that. For me, I was this is disgusting.
Oh my God.
And I took the bibs and I threw them in the sink and I threw some palm olive and some sanitizer in there. And I was I'm washing these bibs.
Yeah.
The parents would take the bibs home every Friday and they'd be disgusting.
Have to wash them themselves.
They'd have to wash them themselves. And I'm this is disgusting.
Did they have a laundry machine on
They
site?
did. They had a laundry machine on site and everything. And I was just blown away. I've seen the worst and I've seen the best. So my best experience at one profit daycare was when we were in school, and it was my placement experience. And this daycare, they had the bibs washed after every meal.
If every normal childcare.
Yeah, it was washed after every meal.
Every single meal, yeah. Messy or not, you wore it.
Exactly.
It's dirty.
It's dirty. It's going in the wash.
Yeah. Any other areas about not-for-profit that you would like to cover, or like things you've seen? I know like it's hard on the spot to talk, and you're going to go home and you're going to be like, damn, I want to talk about that.
I'll be like, I'll call in. I'll be like, Monica, connect me.
Yeah, exactly. When do you have the call-in show?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, when can I add this? I think we've covered a lot throughout our topics. If you feel like I've missed anything that you'd like me to expand on, then I'm more than willing to.
You know, in the moment, I always forget half of it.
Don't we all?
But that's why this show happens every week.
There
so we
you
can
go.
keep talking.
See?
So there's always more. I'm sure we could talk about so many things in early childhood.
Oh, of course.
Right now, your website is being built.
Yes.
So there's no way for me to share it, but I will post it when it gets online.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you'll let me know. Is there any way you'd like people to contact you, or should they wait until the website's up and then find you there? Is that probably the best way?
Wait until the website's up and then they'll contact me. But if there's any like questions or concerns and anyone wants to contact, let's say they want to contact you and then they want to contact me, then
They can just send it to me.
You can send it to you.
So you can email me and I will forward it along. For now, I think that's it for today. I guess we'll see you next time, and perhaps we'll have you back.
Sounds great.
All
Look
right.
forward to it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're
Bye,
welcome.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me in Moments with Monica. If you found any value in this, please like, comment, and share this podcast. I would love for your feedback and to continue this discussion further. Feel free to stop by monicoobermeyer.com or on social media to message me and share your thoughts. Thank you again. Let's change ourselves and the world around us together. Goodbye.